deserve to be supported and sustained. I urge you, members of the National Assembly, to hold both institutions dearly and provide them with all they need to continue to serve you and our nation. Whilst we may not command it, you can ensure that news and the library are empowered to be their best, so that they become instruments of great authority and power for the legislature. Since His Excellency President Bola Tinubu assumed office in 2023, the National Assembly has proved itself a worthy partner in daring. As the President likes to say, this institution has worked. Has worked in to facilitate the implementation of the renewed hope agenda, through timely confirmation of political appointees, effective scrutiny and passage of budget proposals, and by providing an arena for thorough consideration of legislative policy proposals before they are enacted into law. Ensure that this President, who is himself an alumnus of the National Assembly, will always hold you in the highest regard and will in every way possible continue to support the legislature to do the best version of itself. The legislature is the cradle of democracy. It is here, in these chambers and hallowed halls, that we nurture our democracy to grow and meet and even succeed or exceed our best expectations. To serve in this place is a great honor that carries with it a profound responsibility. We must never lose sight of this. When the Second World War ended in 1945, the Allied powers came together and set the rules of the post-war years. These rules have defined how the nations of the world interact for most of the last century. Today, these rules are being rewritten by advancements in technology, the ambitions of emerging countries that have now come into their role, and the efforts of world powers to retain their prerogatives in the changing world. In these times when the world is remaking itself, the legislature must be prepared to act to ensure that our people are not left behind and our nation's interests are not sacrificed, as the rules of the global order are being rewritten. In this and every other effort of nation building, I will continue to be your partner and supporter, working in the best interests of this great nation. I thank you for the honor of addressing you today, and may God bless and keep you all, and God bless the Federal Republic.
If I wear your shoes in summary, that's the success and the growth and the story of the House of Representatives from 1999 to date, as told very eloquently by the immediate past Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, Chief of Staff to the President. I think he deserves yet another round of applause. Thank you very, very much, sir. It is at this point in time, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that we make bold to then invite very quickly to speak to us the President Electoral Commissioner in charge of Benue State, the Democrat himself. Improvements for the House to fulfill legislative agenda at this midpoint. Now, as I said, this is a study that we undertook. It's not possible to study the activity of the 10th House without defining a clear methodology for doing it. The first thing in terms of that methodology is that we agreed that if you want to do a scientific study on the 10th House, you don't need to talk to legislators alone. You need to talk to external partners. You need to talk to civil society. You need to talk to citizens. You need to talk to women groups. You need to talk to youth. So the design of the study identified different approaches to collecting data. And then in the end, we try to triangulate the data we collected from different sources so that we can really take something robust, that can shed light on what is going on. And I would say that when leveraged on both quantitative and qualitative data, so we did a lot in terms of informal interviews, which was done with a number of legislators, committee chairmen and members, and because we needed to really create life into the report that we were doing, We did interviews with civil society groups, with women groups, with people with disabilities, and we held FGDs, focus group discussion with different people in the National Assembly, committee clerks, aides, and the general support staff. So I think this is how we went back in terms of the scientific design of the study. Now, and because I am not interested in doing what one calls a stalker, I will speak to key issues that we have found at this point in time. But let me just say something about legislation and democratization in Nigeria. I want to, as I listen to the former speakers of this house, Honorable Bogara, Honorable Femi, and I said a lot in terms of the position of Parliament. The point I just want to make here is that since 1999, we've done well in terms of conducting elections that are regular, elections that have been accepted by the mainstream members of the political class, that the only way you can access power is through the ballot box. I think it's a major game, and at the same time, there's a feeling among across the entire spectrum of the political class that democracy is the only game in town. I think that is very useful. But we need to understand that democracy is not just about conducting elections that are free, fair, and regular. Democracy, at the end of the day, is about building strong democratic institutions, Parliament, political. That the Parliament is the site of representation, and I think the House of Rep in particular is peculiar. There was a time in this country when people, spent a lot of energy debating between the House and the Senate. Which one is lower, which one is upper? And I think this is clearly something that is misunderstood. It is not about hierarchy of legislature. It's about understanding how each of the houses is made up. We copy the American model of presidential democracy. In the American model, the Senate symbolizes the quality of states, while the House is directly elected by the people. So the dynamics are different. So it's not really about that hierarchy. And what is important is that for any functional democracy, you need a legislature that is up and doing in terms of its core functions. Thank you. I think there's a very interesting quote that I have from Linz, who actually warned us that, if you don't have a functional and strong parliament, a presidential system of government tends to reinforce tendencies of personalization of power, and that it helps people to have memories of kings. The Americans, who had this idea of separation of powers, really wanted to run away from the experience of kings, in Europe. So separation of power is key, and you need a legislature that is up and doing. Well, there's an 8-point agenda that is agreed upon by the House in a very consultative process. I've read the documents, and this is not something they sat there arbitrarily to craft. And I also recognize the support of civic groups, to that process, including CLAC, that has been in the House of Rep as far back as 2007, if my memory is correct. One of the first things we found out in the study we have done is that the House has had an improved legislative capacity. And we have identified how this has happened in terms of capacity building training, in terms of which has supported the legislature as an institution, supported legislators as individuals, supported legislative aides and committees. And it is on the basis of that improved capacity that all that people have been mentioning happened. That didn't happen by happenstance. Cultivation of ICT tools and so on. And I think we have found evidence in the study we have done in terms of institutional growth and maturity of the third house, in terms of the number quantum of new legislation that is introduced, in terms of ability to moderate executive proposal on behalf of citizens. And we have also seen a legislative house that is internally coherent. I've had the opportunity to speak with the speaker, and some of the things they have done in the house is very creative, particularly to be able to manage diversity of the country, not only in terms of the number of parties that are in the house, but also being able to address issues that are none of our political front lines, creating zonal caucuses and building bridges as well. I think it's something that we cannot take away from the House of Rep. I know there's a lot of data that was generated already in terms of the quantity of bills that have been introduced by as private members bill as opposed to the executive. And for me, this is the highest so far across all the legislative sessions. Look at the numbers that have been assented to, it's equally very, very impressive. And there are key legislation that we have also identified. And I'm particular about those that have strengthened our federal system, particularly the most contentious one, the tax bill, and the local government autonomy thing that I think will go a long way in terms of strengthening our democracy. We spoke about elections and inclusive governance and the recognition by the House that there are deficits, and the practical steps we have taken in terms of legislative initiatives that we hope can translate into